the metaphor I like to use is like the Hansel and Gretel. So like everywhere you go, Darren, everything you do, Darren, you're dropping data along the way, right? When you type in an address on your phone knows where you're at. When you search certain things on Google, it's going to pixel you. When you come to Facebook, it's going to show you those same ads. So brands have more access to information than ever before, and they can make better decisions, right? So a 20-unit concept today can have the same amount of data that, in my opinion, a 1,000-unit concept had, 20 years ago.
Welcome to CREPN Radio for influential commercial real estate professionals who work with investors, buyers, and sellers of commercial real estate coast to coast. Whether you're an investor, broker, lender, property manager, attorney, or accountant, we're here to learn from the experts.
Welcome to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network CREPN Radio. This is episode number 79. Weekly, we share conversations with commercial real estate investors and professionals who provide their insight and knowledge, helping investors grow their real estate portfolio. Whether you are a veteran investor or you've been thinking about investing, we're here to help, and we're glad you're here. My name is J. Darren Gross. Thanks for joining us this week. In just a minute, we're going to speak with Jim Hoff and Tyler Carlson from SiteZeus. SiteZeus is a new technology platform that is helping retail brands identify locations where they need to be in order to have success. If you are a landlord, an investor, or broker, or a property manager, this is the information that your tenants will likely be bringing with them when they're looking for the ideal location. We get into this and more, but first, if you are listening to us on iTunes, be sure to go ahead and click subscribe and leave us a review. When you subscribe, you have access to all of our episodes, and you can listen whenever it's convenient for you. Are you on Facebook? Are you on iTunes? Well, not iTunes, I just asked that. If you're on Twitter or LinkedIn, be sure to look me up. It's J. Darren Gross. That's the letter J, Darren Gross, DARRINGROSS. And let's connect. And I always want to remind you, if you're on LinkedIn, check out our group, Commercial Real Estate Pro Network. It's a great place to network with commercial real estate professionals. So reach out and let's connect. All right. Let's get on to the show. This morning on the call with me, I've got Jim Hoff and Tyler Carlson. They're both with SiteZeus. And we're going to get into a little bit of some new technology and new uses for technology. They're going to get into what SiteZeus does. And but before we do that, gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Darren. Good morning to you.
Yeah, well, good morning to you. Before we jump down this, I'm excited to talk to you guys. I'm always a fan of newfangled technology. Especially when it has an implied benefit, and you can see kind of the benefit. And a little bit I've kind of dove into your site. I'm excited to hear about what you guys are doing there. But before we do, if you don't mind, giving the listeners a little bit about each of you and your backgrounds, and we'll get going.
Sure, Jim. You want to start?
Yeah, I'll start up. I'm actually a 21-year-old college student still. I'm an entrepreneurship student at the University of Tampa, finishing it up. This is my last semester, so just about to be out in the real world and interning here at SiteZeus for 4 semesters now. I love it. It's an awesome company, awesome tool, and so that's my story.
Cool. So my name is Tyler. I'm 25. I'm the VP of Sales here at SiteZeus. I have a kind of unique background where during college I thought I wanted to be an orthodontist, so I studied pre-med and organic chemistry and all that good stuff. And with 6 credit hours left, I was fortunate enough to sell a business with my partner that we built selling study guides. And so that caused me to kind of shift my focus from school to business. And so since then, I've been involved in several different companies, including a patented trash bag. And I went to school with one of the original founders of SiteZeus, and coming back into town, it's always good. And I encourage everybody to always connect with people that, especially in Jim's age that want to come back and, connect with students they grew up with that are like-minded. And so I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity at SiteZeus and started out as kind of market research and has continued to evolve. And Jim is quite modest. He wears many hats here, and this guy can pick up the phone and call anybody and get them on the line and get them value. So he's really creative and going to be very successful in whatever he takes part of.
Well, from organic chem to businesses, that's a wide span there.
It's a blessing.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like if you know how to do the organic chem, the world's an opportunity for you there, as opposed to the guy that doesn't know and is stuck there. So congrats on that. Well, it sounds like you've got a technology background, selling study guides and that. But today, I really want to get into kind of what SiteZeus is doing. And just to give the listeners a little bit of background, I think Jim and we connected on LinkedIn and saw what SiteZeus, and from a non-initiated person, I was looking at it, and it just to give the listeners kind of what I saw. You could plug in some information about your business, and from there, it almost looked like a weather map would show up and kind of show you where in a particular city or wherever it is that your customers are and how to get yourself located near that. I don't know if that was the intended view of the thing, but I thought, wow, that's pretty cool technology, because clearly one of the challenges of any business is surviving the first couple of years. It's tough enough with all the expenses and it happens daily. The companies race off to go into business. They've got the greatest idea, but possibly they're misaimed. And so I'm excited to hear about what SiteZeus does. And so let's talk a little bit about it. What is SiteZeus?
Sure. So I think it would actually be helpful to take a step back and talk about the founding of the company and kind of the problem that we were solving, and then, kind of how that's evolved over time. And I think that'll paint the picture of what we're doing. So the founders and the partners of mine, Hannibal and Keenan Baldwin, are both brothers who are about third or fourth generation successful entrepreneurial family, and they were investing. In fact, they've invested over $9 million in the last 36 months in emerging brands, whether that's, patented manufacturing companies, whether that's restaurants, retailers, et cetera. And one of the specific brands was growing, and they opened up, a handful of locations, and we're crushing it left and right. And then everything on paper looked great for a handful of locations that they were going to move forward towards. They opened them, and the locations crashed and burned, and the new ones that didn't work like the other ones. And so, that was kind of the classic light bulb moment. Is there has to be a better way, right? To really, kind of allow you to have your own analytics to help, kind of focus a broker's attention on where they need to look. And then also kind of, blend that with an internal analytics part as well. So kind of blending a GIS tool and a sales forecasting component was the light bulb moment. And that was now about 3.5-4 years ago, and initially self-funded. And then in May of 2015, we launched SiteZeus after 2.5-3 years of development with hundreds of unit brands that were trying it out to really beta test. And like I said, we officially launched in May of 2015. And at the beginning of 2015, we went and raised some capital, less about the money and more about the strategic relationship. And so a handful of individuals worth mentioning. Chris Sullivan, founder of Outback Steakhouse, is one of our lead investors. Rich Renninger, who's the Chief Development Officer at Garden Restaurants, and an individual who's very involved with Colliers International, as well as others that are on the technology side. So a very strong board, and that was really kind of the founding point. And the real value prop was to the brands themselves. So those brands that, you have 15+ locations and you're growing and you want to make sure to mitigate your risk. So hopefully that gives a little context there. And I don't know if you have any questions around that founding component.
Yeah, I think, clearly it sounds like, there was a problem, and it sounded like it affected the founders directly, and the fact they were investing in something that wasn't working. And I love that. I mean, what's that saying? Necessity is the motherhood of invention, which bears true. And then also to be able to come up with a solution. I love it. I'm curious. So is the focus of the experience so far, has it been primarily based with retail oriented consumer brands?
Yes. So the three main verticals that we focus on today, and we've created our tool to be vertical agnostic. It's just a matter of the data that the client brings to the table, and then the other data we can seek on top of that. But today, the three main verticals are the restaurants / just your general retailers, and then C-stores, so convenience stores, gas stations, and then healthcare as well. So the doc in the box, the dental, et cetera, because that's, obviously has a huge growth potential.
Got it. And your primary strategic way of using the products has been going directly to the brands. Is that right?
Correct. That is correct. Now, we do have a handful of master brokers of sorts that are utilizing the tool on behalf of their brands, but far none. The main client is the brand themselves. And, because we really see, and I'm sure we'll touch on this in a little bit on some of the trends, et cetera, but we see a big trend in analytics being brought internal, where before you would turn them over to a third party and kind of outsource it because, in the 90s, 80s, early, late 90s, the data wasn't that big of a concern, and it was easier to just, write a check for someone to deal with it. But I think today, and I don't know if you would agree with this, Darren, that, more and more staffs are being, lessened, but the analytics are being beefed up. So it allows us to empower our clients with tools to help their analytics team.
Sure. Well, I think there's just a huge volume of data out there. I don't know that it's always understood as to what it is or its value, but I mean, clearly it's hard to argue that there's a lot of data out there. And let me just ask you on that. Was the data that you're using, was it readily available, or did you guys have to go create some new data?
That's a great question. So if you think about a pie chart, and that pie chart is every piece of data that will be involved in SiteZeus, I would say about 94% of that data is already in the tool waiting for the client, whether that's, demographics, traffic, layers, et cetera. And that 4% is the data that the client themselves are going to bring in, mostly around the revenues, obviously, the performance, and then also some attributes like square footage, et cetera. But the data that we have in the system is certainly not readily available at all. Actually, we've really prided ourselves on creating relationships with data partners that allow it to open up the playing field. So we could hang up this conversation right now, and you could go call a mobile data company, probably pay about $200,000, and then hire someone to visualize that data. And we've structured that relationship with these data partners to where it's month to month. So now if you're a 50-unit concept and you can't afford to pay $200,000, you're able to access that same data that a McDonald's, et cetera, would access. So we're really opening up the playing field. So to answer your question, the majority of the data was not readily available. It was stuff that we had to seek and kind of form those unique partnerships. And then we also are advantageous in that not only do we reflect the trade area and the demographics, traffic, mobile data, et cetera, but we also let our clients reflect site characteristics. So, what's the square footage on this prospective site? What is the visibility, the access, et cetera, which, we all know makes a big difference.
Right. So let me ask you, because the whole retail thing, very, very, very location specific.
Sure.
I remember speaking with somebody here a while back, and we were just talking about the traffic patterns, and if you've got a coffee shop on the right-hand side of the road on the way to work, you're on the right side of the road. If you put it on the right side of the road coming home, you've probably missed your opportunity there. Is that the kind of stuff that you guys take in? I mean, all of those. I mean, I guess where I'm going with this is that it to me, it seems like a seasoned real estate person would have some sort of a sense of what's needed.
Sure.
And what you guys are able to do with the data is to quantify that to where you can eliminate And actually, I'm hoping that there's something that you're bringing that's more than just what a broker brings. Is that kind of what is that right?
No, that's a great question. So a few things. One, if you think about it, we're using a technology to supplement the site selection process. So we need to equip the data with as much information as somebody on the ground is doing, right? So if they're looking at visibility, they're looking at signage, et cetera, we want to reflect that metrics into SiteZeus, and we're able to do that on the fly. Something that's kind of a high-level way of thinking about this is we're bridging the old way and the new way. So bluntly, a broker is incentivized to get a transaction, right? They want someone to sign that dotted line so they can get their brokerage commission. They're not as concerned of exactly how well that site is going to perform. Now, right? Some more than others, are more long-term in their strategies, but at the same time, the incentives are in line to just get a transaction. So what SiteZeus does is we bridge the old and the new. So we allow you to look at the demographics that the client is used to looking at, right? My incomes, my house, my daytime pop, et cetera. But a lot of times those factors that they're looking at when they send over the broker their criteria, if you will, are really baseless as far as data, right? They think that their client is a high-end client or their client is a low-end client or it's a male or a female, but they haven't backed that up with any type of data. And so what SiteZeus does, it says, okay, continue to look at those 3 or 4 things that you're used to looking at that you've been doing for the last 15 years, but here are 4 or 5 other things that the data is telling you need to take into account, and you need to make sure that is, kind of hits its threshold at that prospective site. So in a nutshell, we allow it to really kind of gut test, where to focus the broker's attention so they can make sure to pick only the most successful sites. And then also the site characteristics will be reflected in there as well. And the last thing I'll say is, we're not here to replace brokers. We're not the Staples easy button. You're always going to want someone to kick that dirt and be able to, drive by the site, et cetera. But what we do is we allow our clients, so, instead of looking at 100 prospective sites and, being stretched thin, you can nail that down to maybe 20 or 30 that have the highest potential so you can really kick the dirt or pick the best site. So hopefully that makes some sense from a high level.
Yeah, no, I was just sitting there listening or thinking while you were talking there. It sounds like you guys are actually able to really identify and know where the clients are. Is that fair?
That's correct. Yes, where the customers are. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I give you, I've got a pizza place or whatever it is, and I know that these are the type of people that that are my customers. And depending on how granular the data is I have, I might know that a particular city, because they're the average income, disposable income, et cetera, say, okay, I want to be there as opposed to the other part of town where there's none of that, right? But correct. You're able to kind of zero it down even more, looking with traffic patterns and all that, and like I said, combine the technology.
Correct. That's 100% true. And what's cool is, if you're a 40, 30 unit concept, you probably have very little data around who your customer is, right? You've been just kind of doing things how you've been doing them, and you kind of have it pigeonholed as a certain customer. And so when you upload your revenues and your site characteristics, we're going to help you gut test who that customer is. We have a webinar series called, Does Data Have a Seat at Your Table? And I've heard time and time again about, executive committees sitting around and arguing who their customer is. And now you can have some data to confirm that, right? And then we're eventually going to get into the marketing side of things where, you've now picked the best location. Now, how do you continue to market to those customers from a local store level?
Right. Well, and God knows if anybody can use help. I mean, you read about all the retail malls that are failing and stuff. I mean, you got to be very careful about where you position yourself to be successful. That's great.
Absolutely. And we do a fleet analysis as well. So we'll show you which stores are underperforming, which stores are overperforming, which ones you need to relocate, which ones you might have an operator underperforming at. So to your point with the situation of retail today, that's very critical, to focus on where do we stop the bleeding in some of these areas, for a lack of better words.
Got it. So the primary strategy so far has been go directly to the brands. Are you also working on relationships with brokers?
Absolutely. So the difficult situation with the brokers is the model around it, right? Where we charge based off the licenses. So when I sell to a brand like a Travel Centers of America, who's a client of ours, they pay for the amount of users that they want access to, and then they're able to use it for their portfolio of brands. But the problem is if, let's say a broker is working with 6 different concepts, if we sell him one subscription and he uses it for all 6 of those concepts, we just cannibalized ourselves, right? Where I could have sold 6 deals instead of 1. And so that's what we're working through right now, is determining the best way to structure those relationships to where, a broker can use SiteZeus to get their foot in the door and, open up the value with the brands. But it's something that we're going to have finalized here in the next, I would say, 15 to 30 days. And we have a extremely large list of brokers and developers that are in the queue to try out our tool, which essentially is just going to have the sales forecasting pulled away from it, and it'll just be like a basic GIS tool like an Esri or a SiteZeus. I don't know if you're familiar with either of those, Darren. And so the fact of the matter is there's a handful of features that brokers and developers want and that are really mission critical that brands don't care about. For example, a void analysis component, the ability to list properties, et cetera, which a brand could care less about, but a broker, it's mission critical. So we're in the point now of structuring the right model around how to empower our brokers that we can work with while not cannibalizing ourselves, while also making sure that the tool is there. So I know that was kind of a long-winded answer, but I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I heard it. And I just want to go back. You said a void analysis or a void? I didn't. There was
a void, as in like what is missing here. So there's
gotcha, void.
Certain tools. Yep, void analysis.
Gotcha. And has the broker market been receptive to it?
Absolutely. So initially, it was, and being candid here, the brokerage community hasn't always been the most inept of enabling technologies. It's been, actually wrote an article about this on my LinkedIn, which basically talks about how the commercial real estate industry is the last industry left to become wealthy in without utilizing technology up to this point. So, initially it was a little bit of people just getting used to it, right? Because I've been doing things a certain way. I don't want to change. But with the landscape of how things are changing greatly, I think that the brokers have become extremely receptive to it. Plus, every single brand, if you were to talk to, 99% of tenant rep brokers, they've been asked about predictive modeling. So they need that in their quiver of value props.
Right. No, I think anybody who's going to go invest a bunch of money needs to have a high level of certainty that they're going to be successful. And if you're able to raise that, have you found that your tool? I mean, clearly the problem that you guys were, or the founders were trying to overcome was launched locations that failed. And have you found that since using the SiteZeus, those that have used it have avoided failure?
Absolutely. So we have some case studies that we're working on right now that are going to put some data behind this. But the difficulty and the delay in is because, it takes, a while to get the site executed and built, and then you have to have it open for a whole year to see if we pick the right, if we gave you the right information. So we've been really, really excited about the results we have already. And in fact, we've brought another data scientist on board that is actually going through and running some analytics around that. So we'll have some really cool data out here coming shortly, but the high-level answer is absolutely yes. And, we're working with brands that have both, used consultants in the past that are loving the technology, as well as those that have used nothing. A dartboard is how they refer to it. So we're excited the spectrum of clients that we're working with, and we've had nothing but growth month over month, and this year has already started being the best year ever. So we're really excited.
Oh, it's always fun. I mean, growth is way better than the alternative. So currently, you guys are based down in Florida. Where is this being used?
So it's being used all across the continental U.S. So we have clients in California, New York, Minnesota, South Florida, all across the U.S. As long as you're looking in the continental U.S., even Hawaii, you can actually use the tool. So we're looking to expand internationally here very soon, and in fact, we have some pretty big announcements coming soon that will kind of speak directly to that. So right now, it's really nationwide, coast to coast.
All right, and if somebody's using it, it's a monthly subscription, is that right?
That's correct. And to touch on that for a second, because I think that's another trend that I wanted to identify with you, which is, one, the idea of, the playing field being opened up with the data and the month-to-month, like I talked about, and something that we're bringing to the industry, which is first is the SaaS component, so a software as a service, right, which is, exactly what you're describing here as a monthly. And so our sales model licenses have a year commitment, which is a third of the commitment, of any of the consultants. So, but besides that, all of our data is month to month. And so it allows us to open up the playing field where before you had to pay, at least $100,000, closer to $300,000 to get this type of analytics. And today you can do that at, a third or a fourth of the cost. So we're really excited with that SaaS model, is empowering, both the largest guys to be able to, get what they pay for, and then also the smallest guys to afford to use the tool in the first place. But yes, it is a SaaS model. All of our data is month to month, except for the Synergy subscription, which is the modeling, is a 12-month commitment.
Got it. And is it? Are you the sole opportunity for this, or are there franchises? Or I thought I saw something on your website.
Can you ask that again, Darren? I want to make sure I'm understanding what.
Well, I was just looking on your website here earlier, and I thought I saw something at a trade show. There was some sort of something about not subscriptions, but it was about franchise. I didn't know if that was a territorial franchise opportunity, or if it's everybody comes to you to get the service.
Yeah, good question. So we're pure technology. So we work with franchisees, some of the largest Burger King and Hardee's franchisees. We work with franchisors as well, strictly corporate. We even have, private equity companies that we talk with. So quite a range. And the franchising thing that I believe you're referring to is the International Franchise Association trade show, which was last week in Vegas. And so
now that I'm thinking about it, it makes complete sense that you were selling to franchisors. I mean,
exactly.
Gotcha. My bad on that. So it makes complete sense. No, I looked at it and I thought, are they selling franchises? No. But clearly, if you're looking to open a franchise, I would think that this is exactly what you'd want. Some sort of a higher degree of certainty of success. So we've talked about how it works. You get somebody, they give you all their specs, you guys dial it up, you come to a conclusion of the areas where the broker should be looking. I'm just trying to look at my little list of questions that I was trying to think about. The future, we talked a little bit about it in the sense that you guys are looking to work with brokers and augment the tool or provide it as a tool to the brokers to use as well. What do you see? I mean, the future of just retail real estate. I mean, and I'm thinking specifically about malls right now. Just everything I read about them is how they're just upside down and closing, and the internet's kind of the death of a lot of malls unless they figure out how to create an experience and draw people in. But I'm just trying to get a handle on what you guys see as the future, because clearly this is a tool that's going to affect how things work. Do you have any sense of that?
Absolutely. So a few things is I think that, the years of the Wild Wild West where, I've heard stories about site selection used to be where you would go to the restaurant that you had already opened, drink a big cup of coffee, drive until you have to go to the bathroom, and then that's where you open your next location, right? So that is literally obviously not going to work anymore, right? Is that with the internet, it has, I think, empowered consumers to make sure that they make the best decisions, and it's not always about, just go down the street to the, to the coffee shop or whatever. So I think that mindset of just, supporting your decisions with analytics and with data is going to be the future. I also think that, retail is going to become prevalent for e-commerce as well. You look at Warby Parker, you look at Amazon, you look at these people that are strictly e-commerce that are now shifting to brick and mortar because of that, face-to-face with the customer and it becoming more of a showroom of sorts. And then also I think that, with Uber Eats, it's going to make a big disruption as well where, you're not necessarily having to get in your car and go get something. It's opening up the playing field again where a small mom and pop sushi restaurant can maybe add 15 to 20% of their revenue by selling with Uber Eats. So we see a trend in, some of the kind of larger organizations that are, for lack of a better word, kind of fat and happy, having to close some stores up and optimize that. But we see that just being an advantage because now they can, kind of cut the fat and laser the focus and get right to their consumer as well. And then also with all of the analytics out there, which, we've talked about a bunch about how data is just everywhere. And if you think about it now, we actually just did a podcast around or a webinar around this where the metaphor I like to use is like the Hansel and Gretel. So like everywhere you go, Darren, everything you do, Darren, you're dropping data along the way, right? When you type in an address on your phone knows where you're at. When you search certain things on Google, it's going to pixel you. When you come to Facebook, it's going to show you those same ads. So brands have more access to information than ever before, and they can make better decisions, right? So a 20-unit concept today can have the same amount of data that, in my opinion, 1,000-unit concept had, 20 years ago. So I think that there's going to be, to wrap it up, there's going to be a big trend in e-commerce to retail. And then another thing I didn't mention is experience-based retail. So companies like iFly, companies like Topgolf, companies like one of our clients, Punch Bowl Social, and others where, it's really an experience. You don't just go there to eat and go home. You go there to, sing karaoke, et cetera. So I don't know if any of those points you want to drill down further on, but that's a quick little high level.
Yeah, and that's something I would like to kind of chime in on too is, so like Uber as an example, with this new technological age that we're seeing, the thing that everyone wants more is time. That's the most valuable thing to everybody. And so you see like Uber doesn't necessarily sell, riders transportation, they sell time. And, you see that with everything, all the new, technological advancements. And, that's something that SiteZeus definitely, it has incorporated 100% is that, it saves time, for everyone, for, the brands. And then when we start incorporating brokers and developers and whatnot, basically it shortens down everything and gives everyone more time and, makes everything easier.
No, that's definitely the realization I think the millennials have capitalized on right out of the chute, just recognizing, why commute 45 minutes when you can live downtown, not have a car, and a cell phone and you're set.
Exactly.
Definitely a model worth going down. Guys, it sounds all very fascinating. I'm encouraged to by what you're talking about, and I think it's got a huge future. I mean, just more information, more predictive of the outcome. I think that was kind of one of the things you said in the beginning, which is the hope of you're not just looking at information, but you're actually able to try and gain some sort of an insight on how to be successful in the future. And it certainly seems like that's what you're doing. Is there anything that we haven't talked about? I mean, I don't want to shut you down here as much as but I'm looking down here and going, I want to be respectful of your time. Is there anything that you'd like to close on?
I would say something that we haven't spent too much time touching on that I would encourage everybody listening to keep a pulse on is all of this mobile data and getting to the point where, I think very shortly we're not going to be looking at concentric rings and drive times. We're going to be looking at actual encrypted cell phone data. We can tell you, if you went inside the drive-through or if you went inside the Starbucks. And, obviously for a Starbucks, that's going to be infinitely valuable. So that's just a little teaser that of something that's, I think very much the holy grail of the data is really drilling into that mobile data. So it's been a pleasure connecting, Darren. I'm excited to, continue the conversation at any point. And, something we talked about offline that I would love to mention is, anybody out there that's listening that is working with a brand today that would love to, put SiteZeus to the test, please reach out to me. My email or my phone number will be here as well. You can call me on my cell, actually, 813-220-5322. And then also any brokers/developers out there that feel SiteZeus can help, if you could email Jim at jhoff, Hoff, at SiteZeus.com and just let them know how we can help you. I think that would be interesting so we can keep the conversation going there.
Yeah, feel free to give me a call, too. My number is 609-694-1454. Again, it's 609-694-1454.
Got it. And I'll put all that in the show notes as well.
Perfect.
So there you go. Well, guys, I can't say thanks enough for taking the time today to talk and kind of filling us with kind of an insight on what you're doing and the future of commercial real estate.
Thank you, Darren. Thanks for having us. We're excited and look forward to continuing to stay in touch and wish you all the best.
Well, I think it's safe to say the future is going to be interesting. With all the data that's out there, it's being collected, why not put it to good use and help us be more successful? If you work with retail brands that are looking to expand, you should be sure and check out SiteZeus for a demo. Go ahead and check the show notes for Jim or Tyler's contact information. That's all we've got this week. Until next time, thanks for listening to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CREPN Radio.
You're listening to CREPN Radio for influential commercial real estate professionals. For more information on this or any of our guests, like us on Facebook, CREPN Radio.